Today's presenter, she is from Redlands Unified School District, and she was their Teacher of the Year in 2020, so we're super lucky and excited to have her here with us today. She was a former ELB Teacher of the Month and is currently an ELB Education Ambassador. Camille is highly skilled at creating inclusive, student-centered learning environments. I know the few times that I've gotten to meet with her one-on-one, I've been with ELB and working with Prowise for 5 years, but just talking with her, I'm like, oh, that's a brilliant idea. So being able to build off of her ideas is fantastic. So we are very excited and very honored to have Camille Dahnke here joining us to share some of the tools that she uses. So I'm going to just hand it right on over to your capable hands, Camille. So thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate it. I have to say, as much as this seemed like work preparing for this, it was actually really fun. I told my husband it was like one of those times where you're able to create things and feel like you have a creative outlet and it looks like you're working, but you actually feel like you're having fun. So I poured a lot of hours into this just because I feel like it's a time when we all need some encouragement. We all need some excitement over what we're doing. And I hope that you find that what I put together inspires you in some little bit. I always think that when I go to a training or a webinar or anything, if I can take one little tidbit home with me that I can then apply in my classroom or apply for my own children even sometimes, then it was worth my time. So I hope that this is worth your time in the same way. I'm going to shift over to my other computer for 1 second and you'll see why. I'm just going to take myself off of, or activate my camera there. So you'll see another view, I hope. And basically you can see the room where I'm working in. My current view is kind of small where I'm talking to you, but this is our loft space. And the reason that I want to show you our loft space is my husband and I are kind of avid DIYers. We came up with this idea to turn our 2-story formal space into a loft, a kid space, a Lego space. And it turned out that this is now our learning space. And I joked when we finished it that it was like a homeschool room, and it kind of looks like a homeschool room because now there are 5 of us learning. And the reason I want you to see the space where I actually am working right now is I want you to understand that sometimes when you're creating with Prowise Presenter, you actually are creating something like this space. It's multifunction, it is aesthetically pleasing, but you don't just start with that. You have to start from with the basics. You have to start at the foundation. You have to start with the structure. And that's exactly what we did when we built this space. Sometimes you'll do that in Prowise Presenter. Other times you will walk into Home Goods or Target and you find just that right item that you know has a place in your home and is exactly what you need or exactly what you want. And you grab it and you bring it home and you place it somewhere and you do nothing else with it. Prowise offers you that too. So I kind of like the idea that you can look at things as sometimes you could pour your heart into something and spend hours and hours and hours creating something because you feel like it will benefit your students. Other times you think, I just need something right now that's going to work on fractions. And you can literally click on the fractions tool and it's ready to go. There is no prep whatsoever. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, I would say, with that. So let me make sure that it actually shares the right way so you can all see it. In my classroom, I'd ask you to give me a thumbs up if you can actually see what I'm sharing right now. But since I have another computer going, I can actually see that it is in fact sharing. Okay. So welcome to Creative Ways to Connect and Collaborate. I hope that through the course of this time with me, you will find that creative ways to help students to connect, work together, and whether you're on campus or remote. And you'll see I included some examples of my students over the past few years working on campus, but now recently working remotely since our district is in distance learning. One thing I want to make sure that I cover with you is just that Prowise Presenter is 100% free. It makes it so easy for me to share good things about Prowise because I know that any family, any teacher can use it and utilize it because of the free aspect to it. There will never be a complication due to the cost being prohibitive. If you'd like to join, go to prowise.com. Now, I'd like to take just a moment for you guys to try splitting your screen. We don't need this just yet, but later on we will be using ProConnect. And depending on what device you're on, I'd like you to have the opportunity to split your screen. If you're working on a Chromebook, you're using Alt and then the little brackets. at the same time. And if you're using a PC, you're using Windows and then the arrow key. But that's just so that you can split Google Meet and then whatever activity I'm asking you to do at the same time. You don't have to, you can totally do it in another tab. That's fine with me too, but I like to cover this just so that you have an opportunity to work through that if you want. If you're on a Mac, just go to the green button at the top left and click Tile Window. So I like to kind of think about the what and the why. And the what is, look at these pictures. I feel like I don't even have to explain it. These pictures show it all. These kids are happy. These kids are engaged. These two think it's really fun because they're siblings. She's in my class currently, and I told her today that her sibling who was in my class a few years ago gets to be on my screen today too. But the cool thing about it is all sorts of kids who do different things at home, have different interests, love working with Prowise. It's highly, highly engaging. I also love that it works for children with special needs. This little girl has a condition where her arms are much shorter than is typical. She's using a stylus in order to move the pieces on our panel, something that she really wouldn't be able to do if it was a click and drag format. So now I want to ask you guys why. I want you to think about this. Like when you're planning something and you're pushing something out, are you aiming for perfection or are you aiming for mastery? And I'm looking more so for the why you're assigning tasks. Why are you looking at something as something that students need to receive in their Google Classroom or their Canvas or whatever learning management system you're using? Is your goal perfection or is your goal mastery? And just some things to think about. Is the task a graded assignment? We all have so much grading to do. If we're doing any sort of remote or hybrid learning, you're doing tons of grading. But we have to ask ourselves sometimes, is every assignment something that should be graded? Should every assignment have 10 slides to it that have content that I then have to grade? Or am I maybe looking for students to have practice time so that they can eventually demonstrate concept mastery? Also, is it okay for students to learn through the process? Do they need to have perfection that they are turning into you and show that their concept mastery is they understand the concept from the moment they start the process? Or are you looking at they practice this skill, now they worked through this skill, and now they're able to demonstrate concept mastery? So let's move into the how. With Prowise, I like looking at it as two different ways, much like the example that I used of our loft space and the space that I'm currently in. I think it's important for us to realize that sometimes our lessons, sometimes your presentations will be pre-planned. Sometimes they will be exactly how you want them to look. And then there will be other times where they're completely spontaneous, where you just kind of throw something together because, first of all, maybe you're just out of time. Or secondly, because it's one of those teachable moments and you think, I need my digital whiteboard right now. Like, I have to do this. We have to cover this. Or you realize there are such amazing tools for instruction. I can pull one of those tools up in the middle of my lesson and kids are going to understand the concept I'm teaching better because of what I have included here. Better because of that tool that I've pulled up and made it just a little clearer for them. Maybe a little more tangible, a little more concrete. Also, ProConnect, which we will be covering. If you have not yet used ProConnect through hybrid, through distance learning, through on-campus learning, you're missing out. It is a great opportunity and kids love it. There's like an audible like wow that occurs when you push out a screen for kids on ProConnect. And I can even see it through distance learning. I can see their little faces light up as soon as I push out a screen to them, and I'll walk you through that. For pre-planned, I think it's important to see that you can really do a lot with direct instruction, your anchor charts. You can do flipped learning experiences where it's more self-paced. Maybe you give an assessment at the beginning and the kids get to follow their own path based on the interests that they have or their learning needs. Also included would be, like I said before, ProConnect, Collaborate, and ProQuiz. Those are all things that you can do that are pre-planned. But notice ProConnect is also spontaneous because you can absolutely put that together on the fly. All of a sudden you think, I need to push out ProConnect, and you can make it happen. Also, please note, I've included synchronous and asynchronous, and I didn't align them to either one because they fit with both. All right, so kind of like we were talking about starting from the foundation, I think it's important to think about really intentional lesson design. When we're designing one of those more direct lessons or an interactive lesson, you can't really expect to just pick out a couple pieces and then change things as you go. The more thought you can put into it, just like when you're building a structure, building a house, you start at the foundation, but you also have an end goal in mind. You have plans so that at the end of it, you know what you are hoping to achieve. Same things here. So I would always recommend start with your background. Choose a background because then everything that you select on top of it will make sense. The next one would be think about your building blocks. You'll see on a lot of my pages, I have this interactive eye. I include this for my students so that they know when they're working on something, if they need further information, if they need clarification of what the task is, they can go to that interactive eye and use that. There are also other things. You might want to cover a surface or use a curtain. Those are things that you might want to think about. I'm definitely going to use that for this, so I'm going to think about that as I plan. Another one that you'll see that I've been using are these arrows. I love to use these arrows as a cue for my students to know to continue to advance through the linked presentation. That way they're not going down to the bottom of my screen and trying to navigate with the little arrows. They know whenever there's an arrow, they're supposed to click it. You'll see I changed the arrows. I can use any image to link pages. So here I purposely showed you guys a different arrow that you can use. Any image can be linked. On this page, I want you to see that there are different tools that you can use to support your content. So we started with the foundation of our background. We thought about our building blocks. We thought about how are we going to link these pages. Now notice I didn't actually link them yet, but I did think about how am I going to link them? And then the tools. And the tools, again, here with tools, we want to make sure that we're selecting tools that actually support our content, not something that just has lots of bells and whistles. And let me tell you, there are plenty that have that, but something that really helps to support your learning objective, helps to support what your students are supposed to be working on. Okay, so I want to offer you a few tips as we are planning things. So one big thing, this is not Google, and that's totally fine. I love Google products. I use Google products absolutely every day, but I think it's important to understand that Prowise is not Google and that it doesn't save like Google does. However, you might think of that as being kind of archaic and kind of like backwards and, oh my goodness, we have to think like Microsoft Word in the past. And you do. But here's what I like about that. When I create something for my students and one group of students has used something, my next group can come up, we can log out of the presentation and start the presentation all over again, and none of those changes were saved. I don't have to make a separate copy for each group. All I have to do is close it and reopen it because it doesn't automatically save. So that's one feature that's been really nice about Prowise. But you do need to remember when you're creating something, especially if you're going through multiple steps to create something that you are really excited about as far as the interactive properties of it, be sure to save often. Also, something that I learned relatively recently is to start importing my own text images. So any of these images that you see are text images that I've created elsewhere outside of Prowise. And these are the Prowise text pieces that you can include. But then if I really want a little more pop, I can go elsewhere to import my text. So here you'll see Canva. Most of what I'm using is from Canva. And but I've also used some from Text Giraffe. So two great resources. I will give you that information toward the end, so don't worry about writing that down. But I want you to see kind of the benefit of how you can kind of import images and have it be helpful to your text. So on this page, I want you to see just some examples of things that I pulled from the Prowise community. These are all things that were already existing. If you go to the file menu here and you go to open, you can go to the community. The community has all sorts of folders where you can find different activities for different grade levels. These are things that I pulled directly from there. I pulled screenshots just so you guys could see ways that people have utilized different tools. And I think it's nice to sometimes look and see how different teachers see things. I go there sometimes just for inspiration. I may not find something that's kinder. It's not all that common to find things that are kindergarten friendly. I feel like there aren't as many of us, except for in Redlands Unified, who are using Prowise in kindergarten. But I think it's really important to look there and see how other people have figured out solutions that maybe I wouldn't have even thought about. So this is just an example of ways that you can link to images. Each of these items are linked and linked to another page. Here's another example of something that I pulled from the community. And this I really liked because it shows how you could have a clear anchor chart. Then on the next slide, there was another anchor chart where they also added the fraction pizza tool. And then finally, they pushed this out in ProConnect where students receive a fixed screen and they're able to add to this in order to demonstrate concept mastery. Okay, so one of the things I really love about Prowise is the aspect of creativity. I love to have students be the creators. And I think in Prowise, that's where you really can find that they can be digital creators. It has tools embedded within where the students are not necessarily navigating out of the program, but they're using the program to navigate to YouTube to source videos, or an image search through Google that goes through Prowise in order to find images. These are actually real examples from my kindergartners who were working on learning about space, but then we're also learning about shapes, and they were able to create this bridge map showing that understanding. They also were able to use the text tool in order to type. Up here, this is an assignment that a student did at home through Prowise. And I love the way that you can see he was able to sound out the words, he sourced his own images, and he was able to type all of the words based on the given parameters of the assignment. Here we have two tools that I think are really, really great for a lot of different purposes: open memory and word search. Now, I know word searches are often kind of poo-pooed in education, and I would be one who in a lot of ways would agree. But when they create their own word search, it's different. And it's not just that they create and fill in boxes, they actually type in the words and then they have to solve their own word search. I think that that's a really good way for kids to be looking for letter patterns, to practice typing their words. And it's really fun because they can make it for someone else and then give it to somebody else to solve. On that note, open memory is a great way that you can do a variety of things. I'll probably show you some examples of beginning sounds, matching a word with a picture, but also matching things like, add-ins and a sum. You can do things like that where you're basically making them into flashcards, but it can be an individual student assignment, but it can also be a group assignment that they work on together. Let's see, I'm hung up. That's not good. Okay, ooh, I went too many. All right, classroom management. I know that this has been kind of big in teacher social media lately, is figuring out a good management system for hybrid learning, remote learning. I have an example of one that I'm using. It is really simple. I literally put it together in about 5 minutes, but once I pushed it out to my students, I don't think they'd want me to change it. They count on this. They count on this little tiny tile to be up in their screen while we during our independent practice. But what I love about it is Prowise's timers here. You can set up the different portions of time that you'd like them to be working at each task, and then they are able to visually track where they are. So on ours, during independent practice, they actually start with a recess break. Then they move into 20 minutes of independent practice. Then they have a little 5-minute break, and then another 20 minutes of practice. What I like about this is just that the kids have an ownership of what they're doing, and there's less, when are we done? When do we come back? They look at it and they know what to expect. I run both of these timers because I think it's good for them to see the overall amount of time that they have remaining with the sand timer, but also to see how it's portioned out. But Prowise also has additional timers if you want a digital view or if you want the numbers showing, that's definitely available too. So this is a tool that is new to Presenter 10 that I had not tried before, and we'll test it here and see if it works. This is a random selector. I put all of my students' names into this little cog, and when you click on a box, we'll see if it works while I'm here. I'm not sure if it'll work while I'm presenting, but, oh, there we go. So you click on the box and it randomly selects a student and cheers for them, which I think is so great within our classrooms, especially since things are different this year. Also think about to-do lists, how you can add that. And in addition to the independent practice, this could totally transform into a classroom wait screen where you put it up for the 5 minutes before your class begins. All right, so let's get into a little more content and look at how you can use Prowise Presenter to assist you in the challenges that we have with remote learning and hybrid learning. So or on campus, because of course I loved using it that way too. If I was thinking about teaching kindergarten or first grade, these are resources and tools that I would definitely start with. They have snap cubes that are already pre-built in there, completing the sequence. Bus Stop is a new one in Presenter 10. If you haven't checked it out yet, check it out. It is so cute. It's a great one. And really, it's one of those, it's that spontaneous, like you just grab it, you put it in place, you push it out to your students, and they're going to love it because it's addition and subtraction, but it's fun. Beaded plank is a great one. I always kind of think this is like a very Montessori approach. The scale, popular numbers is a good one too, where they have a chance to match the numbers to decide which numbers match up to create a sum. Counting, if you just need manipulatives, there's an ability to count here. The number line is an awesome tool, and classifying, all pre-built. Also, for kindergarten and first grade, there were too many to share on one page. I really like the tools they have for ELA. There are a lot of different tools where you have tiles that remind me of Scrabble, things that we would do physically to manipulate in the classroom. And I like the idea that we can take something like this where we have mat, and then we're asking them to change it to hat. And they have that physical opportunity on their screens to manipulate these. Now notice, there's no drag and drop. It's not like you click it and then the blue box shows up and then you have to wait till you see the little arrows and then you slide it. This is very, very touch friendly for kids. So kids who have touchscreen devices can just touch and move with their finger. They can also use a mouse, they can use a stylus, but I think that's one of the big selling points for me, especially as I teach, since I'm teaching littles, or if you have special ed, I feel like that is just something that is really helpful. Some of the key ELA tools that I love, the flashcards are great. The letter selector is shown here. When you click on this little plus, it generates a card, and then they have to place it next to the picture that they built. Also on this, you can choose which letters they have the capability of receiving. So if I'm doing short A, then I would only have short A available here. On this one, these are all X words, words that end with a final sound X. So the only letter that they can select is an X. So every single word will be an X. Final one would be, and there's a character picker, but then also word magnets. And this is great. I've been using this. I put all of my students' names into word magnets, and then they do a would you rather each day where they're able, I do the sort for them, whole group. I sort them, sort their names to would you rather eat pizza or would you rather eat ice cream, depending on what their choices are. But it's great because I made it one time and now it sits there and is ready to go. Let's move on to second and third grade. This is important to see that it's not just a kinder first grade type of program. We have so many different opportunities for multiplication. Coding's great for all ages. I pulled this off of our school file. So I believe this was made by one of my coworkers. And what I love to see here is she's got this, she's showing this bar model. She's got her direct instruction from earlier in the presentation that she repeated here. And then she's able to have them use the pencil tool in order to write on this. And I would imagine this is something they could do independently, but they can also do through ProConnect. Additional tools, multiplication table race is lots of fun, practicing multiplication. And then this one is a really, like, it's just an example of how, let's say that there's a process you're teaching and you want them to label the parts. They can absolutely use the text feature either in ProConnect or in Prowise Presenter in order to add text. Moving on to fourth and fifth grade, trash ball is a favorite for our third, fourth, and fifth graders at our school. And basically all of these balls of trash are links. And each time you click on this link, it takes you to a different slide with another math problem for you to solve. So it's catchy, it's fun, but all of the balls of trash are really just links that take you somewhere important. Another one that I pulled from our school community folder was angles. This is an angle tool that we have that is part of Prowise. It's actually Presenter. Let me see if I can move this for you. It is actually right here in the maths tools here. You're able to select that right there, and then it comes up on your screen. And one thing I noticed is it comes up on every screen in your presentation. So I will not click on it right now because we don't want it on every page. Also for some of those fourth, fifth graders and even younger, citing text evidence. If you can put an image of your text here, they can go through and use the highlighter tool to cite their evidence. Oops, I think I double clicked. All right. Let's make sure we don't go too far. All right, so let's get into ProConnect. So my student teacher, who's no longer a student teacher, but is now teaching herself, has a group of third graders this year, and they were working on rounding. So she sent me this screen of what she pushed out through ProConnect through share screen. So just so you know that that's where that's coming from. That's an actual student response. There are two different ways to do ProConnect. All students subscribe through a code, kind of like joining Kahoot, and then they can connect on any device that they're using. So a lot of my students are doing Zoom with me during the day on their regular school device, but then when it comes to ProConnect, they've discovered they really like an iPad, and not everyone has one, but for those families who have an iPad, they downloaded the iPad device or the iPad app, and they're able to do ProConnect on the iPad. So that's a great way to use it. So there are two different ways to use this. So share screen, but then also the competition and cooperation. Competition and cooperation gives you a variety of games where you can push out addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and the kids are getting repeated practice. My own poor children have done this at home because I can set it up and have them compete against each other. And it's just a fun way to kind of inspire them rather than doing flashcards. It's a fun way for them to kind of race against each other. The little rockets go up as you are achieving success. And if you don't get it right, it just gives you another question to answer. So moving on to that second one, the share screen. Like I said, this is another way that you can do ProConnect, the two different ways. And this way you send out a fixed screen, something that you want your students to work on. They cannot manipulate, but they can augment. They can add text, they can add writing, they can draw lines. But please note, this is only available in Presenter 9. Currently, I'm in Presenter 10. So if you want to do ProConnect, you will need to build your lesson in Presenter 9. So just take that as a note. That's a really important thing. It just has not been fully developed yet in Presenter 10. Okay, so moving a little more in depth into that competition and cooperation part, I just want you to see another example. The cooperation part, they do have a mind map tool, and then there's also a way that they can do a voting technique. All right, next, share screen. Here's another example from my former student teacher. These are slides that she took from our district distance learning. They're actual Google slides. She snipped them and then pushed them out in ProConnect. Now, here's the benefit of this. If she had pushed this out through Google Slides and the students had completed all 10, 12 slides, however many slides there were, she then would have to grade each one of those student slides individually. Whereas when she pushes it out this way, they're doing it all at the same time. She's able to click. These are all slides that she's clicked on. She's able to click on each individual student's slide and is able to give feedback immediately. She can say, Ava, be sure to check what you did in the bottom rectangle. Or Elena, you are spot on. Great job. Or Ryan, I really love the way that you wrote out your equation. Things like that. It's instant feedback as opposed to delayed feedback. Also, live connections is something that I've definitely been using through remote learning. You can click on up to 5 students at once and see what they're doing. So let's say you have some kids who have not been sending in responses. You can click on theirs and you can see, are they actually working? Are they drawing flowers? Are they drawing hearts? Is there a rainbow? Are they just playing with the tools? And you have a little more insight into what's happening. I feel like this is the best way that I can view what is happening, where they are in a remote learning environment compared to what I would be doing otherwise. Also, again, note that it's only in Presenter 10 or Presenter 9. So do not build your Prowise ProConnect lessons in 10. You won't be able to use them. That's definitely something you do not want to find out the hard way. All right, one more. ProConnect on campus and remote. Here's an example of something that I've been doing. I call it minute to win it. I push out things that I want them to answer really, really quickly. Get a quick pulse of where my students are, what they understand. This week we've been doing high frequency words. So they're literally just circling the word that I say. I say, okay, everyone circle the word and they circle it and they send it to me as fast as they can. And they are sending it to me within 10, 15 seconds. But really the whole class is done probably within a minute and we click to the next slide. This is an example of students who are busy counting something that I pushed out. Same thing here, and they're giving me the total number. At times in the classroom, I've had it where they work collaboratively as they're learning. So I was thinking, I imagine you guys are all willing to try ProConnect, so let's give this a try. So everybody go back to your split screen if you need to. If you don't need to, that's totally fine. I am going to switch out of my full screen mode and switch over to presenter 9 so we can actually do ProConnect. Here's your group code. So what you're going to do is go to prowise.com, and then at the very top, you're going to click on Start ProConnect. So go to prowise.com and click on Start ProConnect. And I'll take a look. Everyone keeping up with me? When you get to ProConnect, it's just like when you're signing into Kahoot. You'll type in your name, and then you type in your group code. It's an 8-digit code. Now you'll notice that I have mine snipped here. And the reason I've snipped it is it disappears if you do not snip it. Now it will come back and you can always put it up again, but you'll see it's very tiny and it's just not as kid friendly as I want it to be. So I've started snipping it, and through distance learning, since I can't put it up on my board, I actually save that and then I put it in Google Classroom so that they have access to it. If they accidentally click out of it and they can't get back in, they still have access to get in. Are some of us getting in? I can click on my participants and see. So you as teacher can click on it and see if you're getting in. Is it working?
I think we may need a new code.
Oh no, that's a bummer. Okay, let's try a new code. I was worried about that. I did it right before we started just so that it would work, but it probably was idle for too long. Okay, so let's try our new code. And you'll see it's tiny. 01309628. And Kate, do you want to put that in the chat and then I'll just go ahead and keep going?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So that is a good tip. Don't put it in too early. I put mine in at 2:55, but I don't know how long they will stay active. But typically I generate it right in front of students, or I've been generating them right during my independent practice time. And so then right before we all come back together, that's where when I push out the code through Google Classroom. Another thing is if you snip it and you save it as an image, you can actually put it in your presentation and then the code keeps coming through so that if you share your screen, then it's still there. Are we good? All right, we'll go ahead and move on. We'll get rid of the old code. Okay, so here's an example of something I literally did today. We were working on our high frequency words again. And so before we even started, before I shared my screen, I actually did high frequency word practice with them. Then on the next slide, we did the same thing. I'm going to have you guys go ahead and do this. I'm going to have you watch how it works when I share the screen. So right now you can see my screen, but when it comes through, I want you just to see how quickly it comes through. So everyone circle the word like. So then because I'm sharing my screen, you guys can see what I see as the teacher. You can see how quickly they're coming through. And as I'm teaching, I'm saying, great job, Kate. Alyssa, I see that you did a great job. Daniel, excellent. Amy, Keely, Jessica, you guys all got it. Way to find the word like. Lorena, Ladine, Annie, Debbie, Amy. So you're able to give them instant feedback. They know you're watching. Now, if you're worried that you have some who maybe haven't sent it yet, then you click on some names and you say, I see that your name is here, but I don't actually see your response. Maybe you haven't clicked send yet. So that little picture. And you'll see that the tools are really quite easy. Okay, so I'm able to click on those live for the ones that I hadn't yet received. Those come up on my screen. I like that it's still pretty small for my students in general. They can't see what other students have or haven't submitted. All right, let's try something different. Another example might be some sort of response to literature where you ask them to circle each character as they count, and then write the total number here. So circle the characters and write the total number. And I'm just going to sit watching and seeing how many come through. Did it come through to you? If I'm wondering what it looks like, I can click on live and I can see what students are actually working on. I can see you circling. I can say, great job, Amy. I see that you circled them. Oh, but Amy, let's make sure we write our number in the white box. I can give feedback. And I see that, Amy, you figured out the text tool. Beth is writing her number in the box. That's the idea. All right, let's try another one. So still response to literature, maybe with your primary kiddos. So you're looking at where does the story take place? Now, notice I can manipulate these, and I could actually walk through in a lesson and say, this story takes place in the country, or this story takes place in the city, or this story takes place in Disneyland. I would put those out and maybe walk through that. But students, or you guys as ProConnect participants, will not be able to manipulate what is on the screen. You can only add to it. So that means at this point, your job would be to write the text or type the text in order to see what the students are doing. So I can click on some names and get an idea of where people are. I see people are typing. I see some are not doing anything, which happens. And that's totally fine. But that's the idea of how you can push that out as well. And I did have a parent who was concerned that I was moving too fast on some of this. And I explained that to me, a lot of this, depending on what we're pushing out, we're looking for speed. This is not for perfection. This is about speed and quick recall for a lot of the things that I push out, especially if we're doing a minute to win it type of activity. I can see what you guys are sending me. Excellent. Oh, I've got one who says Disneyland. Sorry, let's try that again. We can actually, if you have one that says Disneyland, you can actually delete it and ask them to resend it, and you can trash that one. And then they'll resend it to you. And then you keep an eye on who's sending you things and who's not. They can also resend more than one time. They can send multiple times. Here I clicked on save results. You're able to see, I was able to save the results of what I did. And now you can see that these results are actually in my presentation saved if I want to go back to them. Typically, I'm not doing that. This is like a whiteboard lesson for me. I'm not looking at it as being something that I need to save. Another activity, I won't ask you to solve this one, but I just want you to see another thing that you could do. Show 2 ways to solve this addition sentence. 456 plus 597. You're giving them 2 ways. The setup for this is really, really simple, very quick. All right, this one I think is really fun, and I'm going to share it to you in just a moment. So what I have are coins set up for infinite duplication. So I'm going to put some money into the tray, and you don't necessarily have to solve it, but I want you to see that this is all set up for infinite duplication. That's a setting within Edit where you click on the actual object and you change it to infinite duplication, and there's no stacking, no duplicating and stacking like you do in Google. You just get an infinite number of items that will duplicate. So this is a good way to be able to send out something like this where you're sending out money, and you can change it each time, and you literally make up one slide. You do not have to make it more than once. You can duplicate your slide so that you don't have to even clear it. But I, as a teacher, could say, you know what? I think that was a little more challenging than we were ready for. Let's try it this way. Let's try this one. I'm going to resend it. You all try it here, and we're going to start here, and then we'll work up to some of the larger coins or the bills. So that's kind of the idea. But if you're watching rather than being on ProConnect, if you can see my screen right now and what I'm sharing, you can see how the objects actually duplicate and they just keep going. And that is one of my favorite features of Presenter because it makes math so easy when you're working with concrete learning. All right, I think that was my last slide for ProConnect. That was it. So I'm going to go ahead and have you stop in your ProConnect. You can just close that part. Don't close out of Meet. We will switch back over. Looks like I'm still sharing my screen, which is good. We're going to switch back over to my presentation. And we're going to take a look at flipped classroom. And I like to look at like a flipped classroom through Prowise as being like a choose your own learning adventure. So let's say that you are just starting out learning about ecosystems and you think it might be helpful for students to get a little more information on their own before you guys really delve in deep as a group. So you could put something like this out. Each of these items could be a link that takes you, when they click on it, to something where they learn about the desert, specifics about the rainforest, specific things about aquatic life and maybe the ecosystem of a coral reef, and then something about the woodlands. They're able to learn, explore, and apply. And then when you all come back together, they have a little more background information and you're able to have deeper conversations and go through a little deeper learning process. Also note on this, this, I have included in my interactive eye here some links that you could include. These are just some that I would think about including, but your district may have others that you would want to include as well. Khan Academy is a great link for many things. iExcel often has great practice. BrainPop can be phenomenal for these. Epic Books or Books could be great for giving you domain-specific reading opportunities. Flipgrid, you could have them do a Flipgrid that's attached to this where they explain what they learned through the process. And then also Discovery Ed. So we're going to keep going through this, creating student portfolios. I feel like we could do a whole webinar on this, but just an idea for you. In my classroom, I have created a shared class account. Every student logs in with the same email address and the same password. I gave them little login codes here that they can put on their computers. And then I have a portfolio for each student. That way, if they want to save their work, they're able to save them in their own individual portfolios. And I'm able to then go in and see what they have and what they've created. All right. So I thought we'd take just a moment to build our own. And basically what I want us to do is I want you to see just how easy it is to go into the tool and find a tool and then actually put it into place. So we'd go into our media here, the media library, click on tools. We're looking for the multiplication tool. So I can click on mathematics. And then I'm actually looking for this multiplication table. So I'm going to click on that. Now you'll see it came in kind of large. So I click on edit, unlock it, and I'm going to pull this in a little smaller so that it's where I want it to be. Okay. And then I can also send it. I can change the order. I can send it backward. Now you'll see my instructions are on the top. That's okay. I don't need those anymore. I really just had those there just for you all, just so I could show you. But now what they're able to do with this tool is they're able to generate their own multiplication facts with this. So they can go, let's see, I want to go make sure you're back on touch. I want to go 3 times 3. And then they can click over here. They'll have to switch to the other tool, switch to their text tool, and they can literally type 3 times 3. And then they can look and see if they want to check their answer. They can actually click up here. Oh, we have to make sure we're back on touch. They can click on their answer here and it's going to give them 9. So what I like about this is they actually go through this process. They're able to see the array, see what they've created, but they can also check their answer. And then they can click back on their text and they can add this here. Now, I know the answer is provided for them, but I love that because it's self-checking. And if they're typing it and they're thinking it and they're reading it several times, they're actually going to get it. Now, I chose one that's probably not the best example because 3 times 3 has the same factors. But let's take a look at this. If we have 4 times 3 equals 12, but then it switches to 3 times 4, which also equals 12. Now they have 2 facts that they can type here. All right, we'll click to our next one. I think I'm asking it to do too much. Another one. So, oh, I lost some letters there. My letter selector I want to show you. I showed that earlier, but I want to show you just how easy it is to go to find it. Go to language, click on letter selector. Your letter selector comes up. And I think I told you before that you can pre-select what you want to be oh, I'm sorry, those are letters that you can put in. You can pre-select, but I'm not going to go through that part right now. I just want you to see that you can flip these kind of like you're flipping an actual chart. And if they want to generate a word, and I'm saying I want short A words, then they're going to flip this, and you can see it's going backwards this way. This way would go forward. And they would flip it to make a word. So they're going to go, they can make their word, cat or cab. We'll go cab so that we don't have to flip as far right now. They generate their word, and then they're able to place it right here. And they wouldn't even have to type it. They can just generate the word. So they can type the word or they can generate the word. All right, one more where I want you guys to see how you can make something. This is that open memory. I'll just show you right here. Open memory opens up with a lot of choices. You have the choice of doing media and text. This means you put a picture. So let's say you put an apple and then you put the letter A. Or you put a ball and you put the letter B. That's one that I've done recently that's been really, really successful and really helpful for them. But you can also do a picture to a picture that has to match. You can also do text to text. So I do this often for high frequency words. I would do this for math facts. And if you do change this, you click on this, now they're not the same cards. So earlier we had it set to where you match an identical card with an identical card. As soon as you click this button in the center, this makes it to where you can go 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Or you can go 10 times 10 is equal to 100, and you can place it there. Once you have everything in place, you save your presentation. When students come in, if they want to play against somebody within their home, or they're able to play against another student, maybe in your small group or something like that. I've been using this for small groups, and I actually do 4 players, and they each go around and they work through the memory game. And it won't start because I don't have any content in it, but I can show you an example. But we're running a little short on time to show the example. I will pull it up really quickly just so I can show you guys that memory game. And then we'll wrap things up for you. All right, so I just wanted to go through a couple slides with you really quickly, just so you can see an example. Oops, I just opened the wrong one. I'm sorry about that, because that was the most recent. We'll try one more time. So I wanted to show you some of the things that I really love to use that I couldn't actually showcase in that as more of a demo. So we're going to go through just in a couple minutes and demo some of these. This is one of the memory games that I've been doing each week. As we learn a new letter of the week, this is what my students have been working on. All right, ProConnect's still trying to open. Sorry about that. That was my mistake. Let's see if we can get it to move through. Okay, so we're going to click start here and see if it will go without being fully loaded. I'm testing Prowise Presenter for sure here. Okay, so you can see an example of how I said that I have the words that begin with an S. This isn't beginning sounds. These all begin with the letter S, but it's not matching different beginning sounds with different letters. Here's how the memory game comes up, and they are able to click. It's a little slow because it's still trying to load. So they're able to click on these two, and if it's a match, it goes in here and it scores for them. And if it's not a match, then they get to try again. And like I said, I'm pushing it because it just was not ready to open yet. Okay, hopefully we got rid of ProConnect. So we've got salad and sandwich, not a match. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next one so you guys can see a couple more things. You can embed videos through the media tool. These are all videos that I found. They're all from YouTube, but the nice thing is they don't start with any ads and they won't navigate anywhere else after that. Here's a great example. This was from the community. I showed it earlier. When you click on these are all links and they will take you to the next slide so you can learn more about that figurative language. So here'd be an example of simile. And one thing I really liked is they use this building block of hide and reveal, which I don't know if it will reveal right now since it's not fully loaded, but as we keep, oh, there we go. So you can see last week I was as sick as a dog. So the hide and reveal is a nice way to hide the things that you don't want revealed just yet, and they can be revealed later. All right, another example of hide and reveal for onomatopoeia. Also, if you're wondering what would be an example of this, they can click on it. They can see what the word is. If it's going to work for me at the moment. Like I said, I really should wait for it to load. And then this is actually the sound that goes with the picture, which I don't know if the picture wants to move for me right now because it's not loaded yet, but it's boom. Another example, you can use those word magnets so they can physically manipulate these magnets to match the picture that they see here. All right, I have to get to the last one. Calendar, I've been doing my digital calendar this way. My little star here, I grab and place on whatever day today is. So I would grab this, you'll see it's on infinite duplication, so we can count all of the days in the month if we want to. Different calendar slides where we're able to work through the things that matter to kindergartners. These are all set up for infinite duplication, so we can utilize the number tiles if we'd like. Those are part of the software. And another piece of our domino number builder. The final thing, which I was asked to demo, and let's see if it will actually load. This is probably why this was taking so long to load, because it is, it just has a lot to it. So we're going to move up here. This is something that I made in 9, so it's kind of moved into 10, and we'll see. It's I have to tweak it a little bit to make it work just like I want it to. This is the magic tunnel. So this is if we are substituting phonemes, we're taking the beginning sound and replacing it with a new one. So we'd change run to fun, and then we can check our work to see if it's right. We change bad to sad. Check our work to see if it's right. Change wet to get. Check. And finally, mop changes to top. And there we go. So we're going to come back to the presentation, and Kate is ready to take over from here. Thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate you being such a great audience. You're so quiet. I'm used to hearing students unmute all the time.
I have a pet turtle. Just felt like you needed something to build off of it. So thank you very much, Camille. Your presentation was fantastic. I'm always learning something from you. Those who have joined us, ELB does have a GAP program, GAP meaning Grant Assistance Program. The Grant Assistance Program, what is it? It's where we at ELB have a department who is dedicated to finding you a grant to match your needs. We created this program because we realized that during these times, a lot of our funding is going towards PPE products and things that are absolutely necessary. It just wasn't where we thought our money and our budget would need to go. So what we're doing is we are going through and finding all kinds of grants out there. There's so much money that's available, and it's not just using the CARES Act funding. So what you would do is you would just simply email grants@elbglobal.com. And again, I'll type that into the chat box. So that's grants@elbglobal.com. And we will absolutely meet with you and figure out what your needs are and better assist you in finding a grant. And we also write the grant for you. It's kind of a big deal. It's absolutely free. There's no 10% charge if you win or anything like that. It is an absolutely free program. Another thing that I would like to add into this chat box is if you would like to receive a copy of today's recording, there is a Google form that just popped into the chat box. This survey, it's a very brief survey. It gives us some information about where you're located, also things that teachers would like to learn more about. We want to have more of these sessions, but we also want to make sure that they're beneficial. They're not just things that we think are important, but rather things that you think are important and things that you need, because we want to make sure to support the teachers. So if you take the time to fill out that Google survey, there is an opportunity to win a Amazon gift card. As they were trying to figure out what they should offer teachers, I said, everybody loves Amazon, let's do that. Lastly, the last link that is being placed into the chat box is Camille's amazing PDF of resources that she has created. This PDF, again, she's got a image right there on her screen. It goes over Prowise, Canva, all the things that she showed us today. So at this time, I would just like to say thank you so much for joining us, Camille. Thank you so much for hosting and putting on a great display of your usage of Prowise Presenter. It was fantastic.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was fun.
Oh, of course. If you have questions, please feel free to stick around. I'm happy to answer any of those questions. And also on that survey, if you would like any one-on-one time, of course, completely free of charge. We understand. We want to make sure to stress our services are free. But if you'd like any one-on-one time, please note that on your survey, and I'd be happy to meet with you and go over any lessons or creation within Prowise Presenter. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I'm going to take a look in this chat box and see if there are any questions. But unless you have any questions, this will be the end of our presentation today. Thank you so much.
I'm here for questions too, if anyone has them.
And Deborah, I did go ahead and answer that question in the box, so please feel free to reach out and I will be sure to get that to you.
Kate, can I ask Camille a question real quick?
Absolutely, please.
Sure.
Camille, how hard was it to get your kids trained on how to use ProConnect?
My students, my kindergartners.
Yes. I mean, what did you do to get them trained so they know how to get to ProConnect? Because I feel like I'm not.
I pushed it out in small group first.
Okay.
So in my afternoon small group time, I pushed it out to them, and that way I figured we were already on Zoom, and then we were able to kind of work through it and troubleshoot in a smaller group setting as opposed to having the whole group together. So we did that one day, and then the next day we did it whole group. And honestly, it's been pretty smooth sailing for the most part. I mean, there of course there are kids who click out of it and such, but especially if you've used Kahoot or anything like that, older kids definitely, I think, are pretty adept at clicking into it. The other thing that I did is I bookmarked on, I had them bookmark the ProConnect on their Google Chrome browser. And then I also put the ProConnect link in Google Classroom. So for those who, whatever reason, didn't bookmark it like they were supposed to, then they have it in Google Classroom along with the code for the day.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? It's a lot of information.
Hi, thank you. And I have a question.
Sure.
So I asked, and I get to teach I teach the dual immersion program, and I get to teach the Spanish portion.
Okay.
And I'm constantly finding out that there's not a whole lot out there. And of course, I'm looking at the stuff that's already been made. What is it called? The community bank. I'm not sure what it's called, but
Yes.
Is this being used out there as well in other languages, or do you know of? Or is
It's definitely used in other languages. It comes from the Netherlands. Correct, Kate? Am I correct on that? And so you actually have the ability when you go into your settings and you go to, is it my Prowise on here?
It'll be account.
Is it my account? Okay, so my account, then you can actually change it's taking me somewhere else. You can actually change your settings for your language. And then once you change that, then the system actually changes it. So you'll see mine set up for English. So you can actually choose different languages.
Oh, and
can you answer her question better than I can?
No, thank you. And the tools would also change to the language of choice.
That's one thing on the chat box, I was trying to kind of scratch the surface of that. Though we have the opportunity to change the language, all of the tools for the most part are going to stay the same.
Okay.
So that being said, we can absolutely create things that are in that dual immersion kind of feel. So just because the things that Camille was utilizing today, we can take a lot of what she was showing and switch it over into the Spanish as well. So it just takes a little bit more tweaking on that side. So when I answered your question in the chat box, I was like, oh, I hope she sticks around.
No, I saw that, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
And one thing that's nice about the tools is they all have a picture to go along with them. I just pulled this up so you could see it, just because I think that the pictures are really helpful. And so even no matter what language the kids are speaking, the tools seem very universal.
Right. And our kiddos are they're doing duals, so
yeah,
they can read them in English as well and just use them. But thank you very much.
That's a great question. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?